The wind bit through the evening air, carrying the chill of a city that never seemed to slow down. On the edge of the park, a boy named Ethan sat cross-legged near a worn-out bench, his fingers working carefully on a small, battered toy car he had pulled from a garbage bin earlier that day. His clothes were ragged, his shoes worn thin, but there was a quiet determination in his eyes. To him, that broken car wasn't just a piece of trash, it was something he could bring back to life, a small reminder that even discarded things still had value. As he fiddled with the wheels, a sound broke the rhythm of the night, a muffled sob. Ethan's hands stilled, and he looked up. A few steps away sat a man in an expensive suit, his tie loosened, his shoulders slumped. The man's hands covered his face as though he were trying to hide his sorrow from the world, but the trembling of his frame gave him away. Ethan blinked in surprise. People like that, dressed in polished shoes and fine coats, weren't supposed to cry in public. They had everything, or so it seemed. For a moment, Ethan hesitated. He was just a boy who slept on sidewalks and lived on scraps. What could he possibly say to someone like that? Yet something tugged at him, a mixture of curiosity and compassion. Slowly, he rose, clutching the little car, and took a cautious step closer, drawn to the sound of a pain he strangely understood. The man didn't notice Ethan at first, his quiet sobs lost in the emptiness of the park. He muttered broken words under his breath, as if speaking to someone who wasn't there. Ethan stopped a few feet away, unsure whether to stay or walk away, but the man suddenly lifted his head. His eyes were red, and his face carried the weight of 1,000 worries. "I don't know how to fix this," the man whispered, more to himself than to anyone else. His voice cracked, heavy with despair. Ethan tilted his head, clutching the toy car tighter, wondering what someone so well-dressed and polished could possibly need fixing. The man looked out into the night, as though searching for answers in the shadows. "I have everything money can buy," he murmured, his voice trembling, "but I can't even talk to my own daughter. She won't answer my calls. She says I was never there for her, and she's right. I don't know how to make her forgive me." His confession hung in the cold air, raw and honest. Ethan's chest tightened. He didn't know the man's world of boardrooms, mansions, or luxury cars, but he knew the sting of being unseen, the ache of wanting someone to care. In that moment, the boy realized that pain, whether dressed in rags or in silk, felt the same. With quiet steps, he edged closer, his young voice soft but steady. Maybe I can help," he said. The man blinked in surprise, finally noticing the small figure standing beside him. Ethan held up the little toy car, its paint chipped and one wheel dangling loose. "See this?" he said softly, his fingers carefully twisting the broken axle back into place. "It was thrown away because it didn't work anymore. But I picked it up, and I'm trying to fix it. It just needs a little time and patience." Mr. Reynolds stared, confusion flickering across his tear-stained face. "But that's just a toy," he muttered, almost dismissively. Ethan shook his head, his voice steady despite the cold. "No, it's not just a toy. Things, and people, don't break because they're worthless. Sometimes they break because they were left alone too long. But if you care enough to try, you can fix them. Even hearts." The millionaire's throat tightened, his chest heavy as if the boy's words had found a crack deep inside him. Ethan hugged the toy car close, then looked directly into his eyes. "Your daughter isn't angry because you don't have enough money. She's angry because you didn't give her your time. You can't buy that, but you can still fix it. If you really want to." For the first time that night, Mr. Reynolds didn't feel like a powerful man with endless resources. He felt like a father who had lost his way, and somehow, a homeless boy with nothing had shown him what he truly needed to do. Mr. Reynolds sat frozen, the boy's words echoing louder than any advice he had ever received in boardrooms or from expensive consultants. His hands, still trembling, lowered slowly from his face. For years, he had thrown gifts, vacations, and money at his daughter, believing that was enough. But here, Under the pale streetlight, a child with no home and no possessions had revealed the truth with a broken toy car. He felt something shift inside him, an ache, but also a clarity he hadn't known in years. "You're right," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I kept trying to pay for her love when all she ever wanted was me." He looked at Ethan, really looked at him this time, not as a ragged boy but as someone who carried wisdom born from pain. Moved beyond words, Mr. Reynolds slipped off his heavy coat and draped it over Ethan's thin shoulders. "You've given me more tonight than I could ever repay," he said, his tone filled with gratitude. From his pocket, he pulled out some bills, pressing them gently into the boy's hand, not as charity, but as thanks. Ethan's eyes widened, but what warmed him most wasn't the coat or the money. It was the way the man's eyes no longer looked empty. Mr. Reynolds placed a hand on his shoulder and whispered, "You fixed something in me tonight, something I thought was gone forever." Then, with a steadier step, he turned toward the road, ready to face what mattered most. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the wide windows of a quiet suburban home. Mr. Reynolds stood nervously at his daughter's doorstep, not with flowers or expensive gifts, but with trembling hands and a heart laid bare. When she opened the door, her guarded eyes met his, prepared for another apology wrapped in riches. But this time, he spoke differently. His voice cracked, humble and sincere. "I'm sorry for every moment I wasn't there. No money, no gift, could ever replace the time I should have given you. But if you'll let me, I want to be your father again." For a long moment, silence hung between them. Then his daughter's eyes softened, filling with tears. Slowly, she stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't complete, but it was a beginning. Across town, Ethan sat in a warm shelter bed for the first time in months. The coat around his shoulders smelled faintly of cologne, and a hot meal waited on the table nearby. Mr. Reynolds had kept his promise, arranging for the boy to be cared for. Ethan smiled faintly as he tinkered with his little toy car, now almost fixed, thinking about how strange life could be, that sometimes, the people who seemed to have everything were the ones most broken. That night had changed them both. A homeless boy reminded a millionaire of the one thing money could never buy, love. And in return, the millionaire gave the boy something he hadn't felt in a long time, hope.